The first time my mother-in-law tried to punish us for saying no, she did it with a holiday. Not with yelling, not with threats that sounded like threats. With a sweet voice on the phone and a line that landed like a blade. If you won't help Valerie's kids, then I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. And I won't let Valerie come either. As if my husband's sister, an adult woman with a husband and 6 children, was a coat she could hang up or take down whenever she felt like it. As if our dining table was a courtroom and she was the judge. And the reason? Because my husband and I don't have kids. No diapers, no daycare, no college savings. So in her head, that meant we had extra money. Money that didn't belong to us. Money that should be redirected quietly, obediently, into her favorite vision of family. When we refused, she tried to hold Thanksgiving hostage. What she didn't expect was that we'd call her bluff, or that the lie she'd built her power on would collapse so fast it would expose everything she'd been doing behind the scenes for years. What she'd been whispering to Valerie's children, what she'd been implying about their parents, and what she believed our marriage was worth without a baby in it. But the real shock? It wasn't her demand. It wasn't even her threat. It was the moment she showed up anyway, uninvited, on Thanksgiving Day, smiling on my porch with a casserole dish in her hands like nothing had happened, and tried to walk straight into my home as if my boundaries were just suggestions. I still remember the sound of that doorbell, again, and again, and again, like she could wring obedience out of us. I didn't know then that those few seconds at the front door would change the entire family dynamic forever. I just knew one thing as I stood behind my husband, hearing the kids upstairs getting restless from the noise. If we let her win this once, we'd spend the rest of our lives paying for it. I married my husband 6 years ago, and from the very beginning, we agreed on one rule that mattered more than any other. His family stays out of our marriage, and we stay out of their business. That boundary wasn't born out of coldness or distance. It was survival. My husband, Jesse, is 34. He's the middle child of 5. Old enough to be expected to know better, young enough to never quite be in control. He grew up in a house that never stopped buzzing. Doors didn't lock. Opinions weren't optional. Privacy was treated like a personal insult. His mother decided decades ago that there was one correct way to live. Marry young, have children, lots of them. Never leave the town you grew up in. Never question her. Anyone who followed that script was rewarded. Anyone who didn't was corrected. Jesse's oldest sister, Valerie, followed it almost perfectly. She's 41, married her high school boyfriend, Brian, and together they have 6 kids, all under 16. They live about 4 hours north in a modest house that always feels loud, warm, and lived in. Brian works as a warehouse supervisor. Valerie picks up shifts at a grocery store while the kids are in school. They're not reckless with money. They're just raising 6 human beings in a world that makes that expensive no matter how careful you are. Then there's Simon, the second oldest, 38. He moved to Japan 10 years ago and never really came back. Visits every few years, stays polite, leaves quickly. Distance was his escape hatch. Paul, 31, lives 2 states away with his wife and their toddler, close enough to be reachable, far enough to breathe. And Ian, the youngest, 28. He used to be the favorite until 3 years ago, when he moved across the country. No dramatic goodbye, just space and silence. Jesse stayed in the same state, but emotionally, he's always kept one foot out the door. I'm an only child. I grew up in a quiet house. My parents believed space was healthy, that love didn't require surveillance. When Jesse and I started dating, he told me, early, clearly, that he never wanted kids. I didn't flinch. I'd made the same decision years before we met. So we built a marriage around that truth, a quiet life, privacy, intentional choices. And for 6 years, we never wavered. His mother never forgave us for it. Every visit came with comments. When are you giving me more grandchildren? Don't you think your marriage is missing something? You'll regret this. Once, she even suggested we could have a baby and let her raise it. Jessie shut that down instantly, but the damage lingered. We knew how she saw us. Defective, incomplete, and most importantly, available. Because in her mind, a child-free life meant spare money. Money that should be used to help real families. She asked us to pay for birthday parties, for expensive Christmas gifts. She once suggested Jessie start a college fund for Valerie's oldest. Jessie said no, every time. Valerie never asked. Brian never hinted. This was never about them. It was about control. And Thanksgiving was where she decided to make her stand. The first sign something was coming didn't feel dramatic. It felt familiar. A shift in tone, a few more comments than usual, a little too much interest in our plans. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving. Valerie usually did it, and by the end of the day, she always looked like she'd run a marathon no one thanked her for. Simon was flying in from Japan for the first time in 2 years, and something in me wanted, maybe naively, to believe that if I built the space carefully enough, the day could be different. Between Jesse's siblings, their partners, and the kids, we were expecting around 22 people. I didn't mind the work. I love cooking. Jesse promised he'd handle prep and cleanup, and I trusted him. This wasn't a power play, it was an offering. But logistics matter with families this big. Buying individual gifts for every child would be overwhelming for everyone, so I suggested a Secret Santa exchange. Each kid gets one thoughtful gift, chosen by an assigned adult or sibling. Fair, personal, sustainable. Jesse ran it by the family group chat. Everyone agreed. Even Valerie said it was a great idea. That should have been the end of it. But about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Jesse's mother called him. Not me. She never calls me when she wants something. According to Jesse, her voice was calm at first, almost pleasant. She said the Secret Santa plan wasn't enough. She said Valerie's kids don't get much during the year and deserve more. Then she made it explicit. She wanted Jesse and me to buy separate gifts for all 6 of Valerie's kids, on top of Secret Santa. Not cheap gifts either. She suggested at least $50 per child. $300. Minimum. Jesse told her no. He reminded her that we were already paying for the entire Thanksgiving meal for 22 people, that everyone had agreed to the exchange, that fairness mattered. She didn't hear a word of it. She said he was selfish. She said he didn't understand family. She said those kids would be heartbroken. Jesse pointed out that every child was only getting one gift. That was the entire point. Logic didn't interest her. The next day she called again, this time with a weapon. She said she wasn't coming to Thanksgiving. And she wouldn't let Valerie come either. If you care about your sister, she said, you'll do the right thing. Jesse hung up. When he told me, my chest went tight, not with fear, but with anger. Not at Valerie, at the way she was being used. I told Jesse to call his sister, not to confront, just to check. When he did, Valerie sounded fine, relaxed. Brian had gotten a raise. They were doing better than they had in a while. She laughed about not having to cook this year. Then Jesse told her what their mother said. The silence on the line said everything. And in that moment, the lie cracked open. Valerie didn't explode right away. At first, her voice just dropped. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something tight and controlled, like she was holding herself together by her fingernails. She said what? Valerie asked. Jesse repeated it. Slowly, carefully. He told her about the demand for extra gifts, the amount, the threat to keep her and the kids away if we didn't comply. For a few seconds, there was nothing but breathing on the line. Then Valerie started yelling, not at Jesse, but at the situation, at the years of implication she hadn't known were happening behind her back. I never asked her to do that, she said. I would never ask you for money, ever. Her voice cracked, not with weakness, with humiliation. She said she was furious that their mother was painting her family as a charity case, that she was using 6 children as emotional leverage to manipulate Jesse into opening his wallet. Valerie said she was going to call their mother and set things straight. Jesse stopped her. He told her this wasn't her mess to clean up, that she'd been dragged into it without consent, that he'd handle it. That night, Jesse did something he'd never done before. He confronted his mother publicly. He sent a message to the family group chat, everyone included. He didn't soften it. He didn't hedge. He explained exactly what she had demanded, exactly what she had threatened, exactly why it crossed a line. He ended the message by saying she was no longer invited to Thanksgiving. The response was immediate. Simon reacted first, with a simple thumbs-up emoji. Paul followed. About time someone said it. Ian. Not surprised. Valerie sent a long message backing Jesse completely. She said she was humiliated, that her children were not bargaining chips, that she never wanted charity. Brian added his own message, short, direct, clear. We work hard, we don't need rescuing. An hour later, Jesse's mother finally responded. She said Jesse was being cruel. She said I had turned him against his own family. She said she was only trying to help her grandchildren and was being punished for caring. No one replied. Jesse muted the chat. For 2 weeks, there was silence. No calls, no messages, no guilt-laced apologies disguised as concern. I finished planning the menu, bought groceries, prepped the house. Everyone confirmed they were still coming. Everyone except her. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and quiet. I put the turkey in the oven at 6 a.m. Jesse moved tables and chairs, converting our living room and dining room into something big enough to hold us all. Simon arrived first, beer in hand, joking that he was ready to enjoy a holiday without emotional landmines. Paul and his wife came next with their toddler, then Ian. Valerie and Brian arrived last with the kids, and suddenly the house was loud and alive. Everything was good. Too good. I was basting the turkey when the doorbell rang. Jessie went to answer it. I heard him say her name. Then the doorbell rang again. And again. Someone was leaning on it. When I reached the door, Jessie was standing there with it cracked open. His mother was on the porch, smiling, holding a casserole dish like a peace offering. "I'm not missing Thanksgiving with my family," she said. Jessie told her she wasn't invited. She tried to push past him. The doorbell kept screaming. The kids upstairs started to stir. I told Jessie to let her in, only because it was freezing and I didn't want police showing up over a holiday meltdown. She walked in like she owned the place. And in that moment, the real confrontation began. The air changed the second she crossed the threshold. Not because she raised her voice, because she didn't have to. She set the casserole dish on my counter like it had always belonged there, slid off her coat, looked around my kitchen with the familiar expression of someone assessing territory they believed was theirs by right. Valerie walked in from the living room and froze. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Valerie asked, very calmly, why she was there. Jessie's mother smiled at her like this was all a misunderstanding, like the last 2 weeks hadn't happened. "I'm here for Thanksgiving." Valerie said she wasn't invited. Her mother waved that away, said Jessie didn't get to make that decision for the family, said no one could keep her from her grandchildren. That's when Valerie's voice rose. Not hysterical. Steady, sharp, done. She told her mother she had no right to use her children as leverage, that lying about her finances was humiliating, that implying they couldn't care for their own kids crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Her mother tried to interrupt. Valerie didn't let her. She said this wasn't new, that the comments had been happening for years. The critiques, the pity disguised as concern, the constant suggestions that she and Brian were barely holding it together. Simon appeared in the doorway, then Paul, then Ian. Brian stood behind Valerie, arms crossed, unmoving. Jessie's mother looked around and realized she was outnumbered. Her expression shifted. She apologized, carefully, for any misunderstandings. She said she was only trying to help. Valerie said no one asked for help. That's when the story changed. Suddenly, she was the victim. She said her children had turned against her, that she raised them to value family, and now they were ganging up on her like she was the enemy. Then she looked at me and said I was the reason Jessie had changed, that I had poisoned him against his family. My hands were shaking, but I didn't speak. Jessie did. He told her to leave. She refused. Said she wasn't going anywhere. Jessie told her if she didn't leave, he would call the police. She laughed, so he pulled out his phone. The laughter stopped. She grabbed her coat, her casserole dish, walked out without another word, slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Ian broke the silence. "Someone should open the beer." Simon handed him one. Valerie sat down at the table and put her head in her hands. Brian rubbed her back. The kids came upstairs asking what happened. Valerie told them everything was fine and sent them back downstairs. We ate hours later. No one mentioned her. And somehow, it was the best Thanksgiving any of us could remember. But what I didn't know then was that the real damage had already been done. And the truth she'd been feeding the children was about to come out. The week after Thanksgiving was too quiet. Not peaceful, just tense in that way where you can feel something gathering under the surface, like pressure behind glass. No one heard from Jessie's mother. No angry messages, no guilt-soaked apologies, no dramatic exits. At first, I thought she was regrouping. I was wrong. The silence broke when Valerie called Jessie. Her voice sounded different this time. Not furious, not shaking. Cold. She said she and Brian had been talking, replaying everything that happened. The gift demand, the lie, the way their mother had spoken about their finances, and something hadn't sat right. So they asked the kids a few careful questions. What came out made my stomach drop. Valerie told Jessie that their mother had been talking to the children for years, quietly, privately, when no adults were around. She told the oldest that if he studied hard, maybe Jessie and I would pay for his college since we didn't have kids of our own. She told the second oldest that Valerie and Brian should have stopped after 4 kids because they couldn't afford more. She told them they were lucky Grandma was around because otherwise they might not have enough. The kids hadn't understood it at the time. They just absorbed it. After Thanksgiving, questions started coming. Why does Grandma say we're poor? Did you and Dad make a mistake having us? Valerie said she felt sick hearing those words come out of her children's mouths. She said she didn't scream, didn't cry. She just went numb. And then she got angry in a way that felt final. She told Jesse she was done. No more visits, no more phone calls, no more holidays. Brian backed her completely. Jesse told her he supported whatever decision she made. Valerie wrote a message to their mother and asked Jesse to read it first. He read it out loud to me. 3 paragraphs. The first explained how deeply hurt she was by the gift manipulation. The second listed, clearly and unemotionally, the things their mother had said to the kids and why it was unforgivable. The third said they were going no contact, that their mother was no longer welcome around their children, that she was not to call, visit, or attempt to reach out. Jesse told her it was clear, strong, fair. She sent it that night. The next day, their mother called Jesse. She was crying. She said Valerie was overreacting. She said she never meant harm. She said she was just being a grandmother. Jesse told her grandmothers don't tell children their parents can't afford them. She said he was twisting her words. He hung up. 2 days later, she called me. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying she needed my help, that Valerie wouldn't talk to her, that I could convince Valerie to forgive her. I wasn't close to Valerie. We were friendly, not intimate. She was lying again. I deleted the voicemail and told Jesse. Then she started calling the others. Simon didn't answer. Paul told her he wasn't getting involved. Ian told her to leave him alone. She sent a message to the family group chat asking why everyone was turning their backs on her. No one responded. A week later, Valerie sent a message. Their mother had shown up at their house. Brian answered the door and told her to leave. She refused. She cried on the porch, said Valerie was keeping her grandchildren away. Brian shut the door. She sat there for 20 minutes before leaving. Valerie said next time she'd call the police. Jesse said he'd do the same. Paul and Ian agreed. Simon said he was glad he lived in Japan. The escalation wasn't loud. It was relentless. And it was tearing apart the last illusion she had left, that if she just pushed hard enough, someone would give in. There's a moment in every family fracture where the anger burns itself out. What's left isn't rage. It's grief. Not the kind that cries loudly, but the kind that settles into your bones and makes you realize something irreversible has happened. For Jesse, that moment came late one night when we were lying in bed, the house quiet in a way it never used to be after family gatherings. He stared at the ceiling, jaw tight, eyes unfocused. She's never going to stop, he said finally. Not angry, just tired. In the weeks after Valerie went no contact, Jesse's mother didn't escalate with shouting or apologies. She shifted tactics. She started rewriting history. She called Simon more often. He was the only one who hadn't blocked her, partly out of distance, partly out of guilt. He told Jesse she cried on the phone, talking about how lonely she was, how her children had abandoned her, how she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. No acknowledgement, no accountability. Just sorrow without reflection. Paul's wife received a long Facebook message about how the family was falling apart and how she, as someone who married in, could help fix it. Paul told her not to respond, but the message left her shaken. Ian found an email from his mother in his work inbox. She said she missed him, asked if he'd meet her for lunch the next time he was in town. He hadn't been home in over a year. The fact that she tracked down his work contact made his skin crawl. Each attempt was quieter than the last, more desperate, less effective. And somehow that made it worse. Jesse struggled with guilt, not because he doubted the decision, but because he finally accepted the truth underneath it. His mother didn't miss her children. She missed control. I watched him wrestle with that realization, how every childhood memory he re-examined now looked different, how love had always come with strings, how praise was conditional, how silence was punishment. I felt my own grief too, not for her, for the family we'd hoped we could have if we just tried hard enough. There were moments I questioned myself, wondered if I should have answered that voicemail, if being the reasonable one could have softened things. But then I remembered her face on my porch, the way she rang the doorbell, the entitlement in her smile. And I knew. The lowest point came when Valerie called again, quiet, exhausted. She said one of the kids asked if Grandma was mad at them. Valerie told him no, that Grandma had things she needed to work on. The kid nodded and went back to playing. That was it. No tears, no devastation. Just acceptance. That's when it hit me how much damage had already been done, and how much healing still lay ahead. This wasn't a dramatic ending. It was a slow, aching reckoning, and it forced all of us to face a hard truth. You can love someone and still need to walk away. The turning point didn't come with a confrontation. It came with absence. Weeks passed without chaos. No emergency calls, no last-minute guilt trips, no one asking Jesse to fix anything. And slowly, something unexpected happened. The family started talking again. Not in whispers, not in guarded half-sentences. In full conversations. About work, about the kids, about plans that didn't have to account for anyone's mood. Simon stopped answering his mother's calls altogether. He told Jessie it wasn't out of anger. He just couldn't keep being her emotional landfill. Paul and his wife announced they were expecting another baby. Paul said, half joking, half serious, that he was relieved his mother wouldn't be around to critique the nursery or comment on the name. Ian admitted something one night on the phone that stunned Jessie. He was thinking about moving back home. Not because he missed the town, because he missed his siblings. He said he'd never considered it before, because he knew their mother would insert herself into his life the moment he crossed state lines. Without her presence, the idea felt possible. Valerie sounded lighter too. The kids stopped asking about their grandmother. When they did, it was casual, curious, not aching. Maybe someday, Valerie would say, and they accepted it. That acceptance changed something in Jessie. One night, sitting at our kitchen table, he said something I hadn't heard before. This is what family is supposed to feel like. Not tense, not conditional, not performative. Just people choosing each other. We realized then that the lie holding everything together had been the belief that proximity equaled love, that enduring someone meant honoring them. But love that demands silence isn't love. Respect that only flows one way isn't respect. The final proof came unexpectedly, months later. Jessie ran into one of his mother's friends at a hardware store. She asked how his mother was doing. He said he didn't know. The woman looked confused, said she thought Jessie and his mother were close. He didn't correct her. He didn't explain. He just said everyone was doing fine and left. When he told me about it, he looked peaceful. She's just someone I used to know, he said. And he wasn't bitter. He was free. The turning point wasn't about punishing her. It was about choosing ourselves. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded quietly, like the consequences of gravity, unavoidable, steady, and completely indifferent to her intentions. By the time Christmas came, the family had already shifted into a new rhythm. We hosted again. Everyone came. Everyone except Jessie's mother. The kids asked where Grandma was. Valerie told them Grandma was taking a break from visits for a while. That was enough. They went back to tearing open wrapping paper, comparing toys, laughing. The Secret Santa exchange went exactly as planned. Every child received one thoughtful gift. No one complained. No one felt shortchanged. No one cried. Paul's wife pulled me aside later and said it was the first holiday she'd attended where no one was walking on eggshells. Ian said the same thing. He admitted he hadn't realized how much tension his mother brought into every room until she wasn't there. Jessie's mother tried calling him Christmas morning. He didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying she hoped he was happy ruining her holiday. He deleted it without listening to the end. After Christmas, the attempts continued, but they lost their force. She called. We blocked her. She emailed. We filtered it. She messaged Paul's wife. Paul shut it down. She tracked down Ian's work email. He blocked that too. Valerie and Brian had already blocked her completely after the porch incident. Simon was the only one who hadn't blocked her. He lived in Japan. Distance gave him emotional armor. She started texting him instead. He told Jessie the messages were strange, light, almost friendly. Comments about things that reminded her of him. Small check-ins she'd never bothered with when he lived nearby. He responded once a month, out of pity. Not love, not obligation, just acknowledgement. In early February, Valerie called again, angry this time. Brian's sister had run into Jessie's mother at the grocery store. She told her Valerie was cruel, vindictive, keeping the kids away for no reason. Brian's sister didn't argue. She didn't defend. She just nodded and left. Valerie said what hurt wasn't the lie, it was the familiarity of it. Their mother was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to recruit sympathy, still refusing accountability. Paul called a few days later. His wife had received a message from Jessie's mother asking her to help fix the family, claiming she was the only neutral one. Paul told her not to respond. She said it made her feel like they were characters in some imaginary conspiracy instead of adults reacting to real harm. By March, the attempt slowed. She was running out of doors, running out of numbers, running out of leverage. And the family, without her, started to thrive. Camping trips were planned. Group chats were peaceful. Conversations happened without fear of being overheard or corrected. The fallout didn't destroy her children's lives. It gave them back. It's October now. Almost a full year since that Thanksgiving. The doorbell, the casserole dish, the moment everything finally broke open. We're planning another holiday. Everyone is coming. The kids are excited. The adults are relaxed in a way they never used to be. There's no anxiety about seating arrangements, no mental rehearsal of conversations to avoid setting someone off. No one asks if she'll be there, because the answer doesn't matter anymore. Simon still sends Jesse's mother a text once a month. A short one, just enough to say he's alive. He says he does it out of pity, not love, not duty. Jesse understands, even if he thinks she deserves less. Valerie told us recently that the kids don't ask about their grandmother anymore. They haven't for months. Brian says children adapt faster than adults when the environment is healthier. Paul and his wife are expecting another baby. This time, there's no commentary, no criticism, just quiet joy. Ian is seriously considering moving back closer to his siblings. He says the idea doesn't feel suffocating anymore. It feels safe. Jesse ran into one of his mother's friends again not long ago. She asked how his mother was doing. He said he didn't know, and this time it didn't sting. He told me later that his life feels quieter now, easier, ours. We still don't have kids. We still don't want them. And for the first time, no one is questioning our worth because of it. Here's what I learned from all of this. Family isn't who demands access to your life. It's who respects it. Boundaries don't destroy families. They reveal which relationships were built on love and which were built on control. Walking away doesn't make you cruel. Sometimes it's the kindest thing you can do for yourself. And for us, this is the life we chose 6 years ago when we got married. Quiet, private, ours.